lightning like Steve McQueen. I'm in the fast lane when the light turns green. And I built tough, I ain't nothing but grit. Cause I made rugged blood, sweat, and spit. Yeah, like a horse I fly. Better push yourself in for a bumpy ride. I like to play hard, but I work harder. And I weather the storm cause I'm built stronger.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen? We are back. We are live. It is the Freight Coach Morning Show, the top morning show in transportation, coming to you guys every single weekday, 8:30 a.m. Pacific, 10:30 Central, to break down some industry headlines and, most importantly, provide some actual insight into what you can do with all of this information. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome. This is the real side of freight, ladies and gentlemen. And I say that every day. And what do I mean by that? I mean, I only speak to transportation professionals on this show, as well as my twice-a-week long-form podcast, because I want to talk to the right individuals who have done what you're looking to do or who are currently doing what you're trying to achieve, so you can take that, apply it, utilize it, and see a meaningful difference in your business and your life. It's one of the many, many reasons why I probably fly this American flag behind me every single day. A, we're the greatest nation on earth, but B, I'm living my American dream, and I want to help each and every one of you live yours as well. Tuesday, here we are, you guys. Michael, what is up? Michael Woods, happy Monday, good day. Let's get some transportation information about logistics. And he says we need logistics, then combine maritime with rail and roadway. We're all on it, my man. David Nathan, good morning from Philadelphia. David, what's going on, man? Yeah, today is busy, right? We got a lot going on, fortunately, and we were kind of talking about this yesterday. It's legitimately a culmination of months upon months upon months of hard work and outreach and everything else that kind of lead up to these moments. And, it's just one of those situations that, from my perspective, it's so necessary, and it's so hard to see it all in the moment, right? I think that's the hardest part about business in sales and everything, is like all of that effort and built up to it. And, I was listening to one of Ed Milet's podcast this morning when I was at the gym, and he was talking about a lot of your results today are based off of the last 60 or 90 days and everything. And it's a direct reflection of that. And, that goes to every area of your, business and life and everything. So, it's definitely something to think of out there. And, it's something that I, try and really just take day by day and, shipment by shipment and everything else, because it's like, there's a lot that can come at you. And, I'm a very emotional person. And from my perspective, and, it's just one of those things that it's, always about, taking everything day by day. So, yeah, I think that's one of those situations. Corey Buchan, what's going on, man? Good to see you. Flo, happy Halloween to you. It was funny. I saw a bunch of people posting orange shirts today, and then I was like, this is one of the very few days out of the year that I'm actually not wearing orange, and the irony of all of that. And from my perspective, because it is orange shirt gang, as Sunny Sharma says, out there every single day. And yeah, I thought it was kind of funny that I'm the one who's not wearing orange today when everybody else is. But yeah, we got some articles we're going to break down today. I'm probably going to jump into those a little bit earlier than normal because, again, I got a lot of freight moving today, fortunately. And we're in here to make all of that stuff happen. And again, I want to deliver the news and get into that. Tracy St. Clair, good morning. Yeah, because when I first started creating content, and I did this a little bit last week, we always did those daily videos, and Tuesdays were always training topics. And, today I want to talk, touch base a little bit about sales, right? And, again, it was one of those situations that we were talking about, right? About like the efforts of the last 60 or 90 days and getting to that point. And, this is realistically the results that I'm experiencing today are the last, 10, 11 months of hardcore prospecting and, and going through a lot of stuff and not losing faith in that. And it's really, focusing in on what I'm selling and what I'm going after. And from my perspective, it's really about legitimately just going in with a purpose when you're selling, right? Because again, I'm not going out there and talking to people for the sake of talking to them. I'm going in there because, we specialize in open deck and heavy haul transportation, and it's really purpose-driven sales, right? I'm not doing the spray and pray model of just calling people for the sake of calling them. If I am prospecting other commodities, it is a specific day for that commodity. And it's not going in there like I've never mentioned, at least recently, right? Like when I was younger in sales, it was a little bit different, but I'm in one of those situations now where it's like I only go after my specialty, right? Like those are the only prospects that I'm going after. And I want to talk to them about my technical knowledge and skills regarding their freight. And that's just one thing that I would recommend for anybody out there. If you're out there and you're in sales and you're trying to build your book of business and everything else, focus on one thing. That's what I do every single day. And again, I'm not out there asking to quote for anything. I'm not asking to do anything other than go after one thing to talk about my technical skills of the product and everything else and how I think my services can align with what they're looking for in a service provider. So, that's just one of those situations where I would just be very much upfront when I am prospecting about why I'm reaching out to them. And, again, at the end of the day, you're going to speak to some individuals, heck, you're even going to go as far as moving a couple of loads for some people. And for some reason, they're just not going to talk to you ever again. But, again, that's the whole purpose of getting out there and continuing to prospect, having that specialization. And I'll promise you, you will have different conversations out there when you are speaking to more and more of the same people time and time again. Suki, happy Halloween to you as well. But let's get into some articles here, you guys. And the first article we are going to break down is from my friends over at the JOC. And this is a U.S. LTL carriers gaining freight and hiking rates, but real recovery is elusive. Hold on one second here. I got it. My computer is frozen. There we go. Large LTL trucking companies are reporting higher shipment costs following the collapse of Yellow, without actual growth in the underlying LTL freight demand from manufacturing or retailers. And those gains are not signs of a true recovery, trucking executives said out there. We're not seeing any sign of a true inflection in the economy, says Adam Satterfield, is the CFO at Old Dominion. The second largest U.S. LTL provider told Wall Street on this last Wednesday. This article came out last week. ODFL has added 3,000 shipments a day in August, a volume rise in September and October, he said. But those increases, welcome as they are, represent a redistribution of existing freight and not a demand for new goods. And are the increased orders for widgets? Is the shipment weight getting back to what we've seen in the more robust economies? He did not need to answer his own questions, but the response is an obvious no. Rate hikes that are out there. And then even without the industrial recovery, the sudden loss of Yellow's capacity in July is a catalyst for higher LTL rates. Former customers were hit with the highest rate hikes as freight was reallocated to other carriers in August and September. The U.S. Price Producer Index for long-haul LTL rose 5.3% from July through September and fueled by rate hikes and higher fuel surcharges. The index rose 2.2% sequentially in the third quarter, but is also still 3% lower than a year ago. I think it's very interesting, right? Like when you're hearing about all of this stuff out there and about how Yellow's market share was easily absorbed, and there was like very minimal disruptions in service out there. And I think that it's kind of crazy to think that is because Yellow wasn't exactly small. And for them to kind of get absorbed with that in the industry to keep moving on, it's kind of crazy to think. And then it goes on to say that if Yellow had gone out of business in May or June, that 2.2% number would have been much higher. Tighter supply is driving pricing higher. At the same time, LTL freight is shared by a smaller number of carriers. And then the Yellow's four subsidiaries handled about 7% of the total shipments in 2022. Higher fuel surcharges, and accessorial fees are also pushing up LTL costs. The exit of capacity and fuel costs and the design and application of accessorials are what is dominating our conversations with shippers. The largest carriers, LTL carriers, excuse me, led by FedEx, Old Dominion, XPO, and Estes, T-Force, ABF, and Saia, all gained shipments in August and September. But many smaller carriers saw volume increases by double digits out there. Let me see. LTL carriers are marking out their, LTL carriers are marking out their pricing expectations early by general rate increases, GRIs, and on Saia Tuesday announced on Saia, on Tuesday announced a 7.5% increase. FedEx put a 5.9% increase. It's kind of crazy though, right? Like when you see all of this stuff, you see that the carriers are out there, they are increasing their rates. And, we had Gabe Pinkin in on the show last week, and, he's one of my main guys for all things LTL. And, he was talking about that. And that essentially it was like when all the stuff went out with Yellow, they, essentially all the LTL carriers were like, all right, we're all raising our rates. That's kind of what it seems out there, because that's what you're seeing in the market, right? A lot of that stuff. And it's kind of crazy to see. Like, it was kind of like they all just stood up, and like, obviously there's going to be different price increases, but they all raised their rates out there. Let me see. The LTL freight shuffle is not has not completed, and shipments per day at ODFL rose about 47,000 on average from the first half of 2023 to 49,000 to the third quarter, but that's still 2.9% below the third quarter a year ago. And then they were saying that everything is still getting back to flattish, and that's a good position to build on. It's crazy to think. And then this article, it's a longer one. But again, it's crazy, like Old Dominion from the LTL world is like the gold standard. Like, they are very much, let me see here. They are very much like some of the best performers out there. And I know a couple of the sales reps over at Old Dominion. But it seems like they're, when they talk, a lot of people need to listen, because they're running their business top tier over there. And again, this is a really good article. This is from the Journal of Commerce, joc.com. U.S. LTL carriers gaining freight and hiking rates, but real recovery is elusive. All the articles that I break down, you guys, are uploaded onto the Freight Coach YouTube channel, as well as the Coffee with the Freight Coach audio only replay of this, which is available on iTunes and Spotify almost immediately after the show. Next article we are going to break down today is from FreightWaves, and it goes on to say Intermodal's gain is trucking's loss. And then it talks about how Intermodal appears to be taking back what it lost during the pandemic out there. And, this is, this article to me is, as things, I think it's a good explainer of, I don't even know if that's a word, but of what kind of happened during last couple of years through everything, and how people just needed stuff moved right at the end of the day. And they were willing to do whatever it took to get that freight off their docks and everything else. And, it goes on to say long-haul truckload demand has moderated in October, and while domestic intermodal loaded container volumes have hit their highest levels since 2021, the implication is that shippers are converting truckloads to rail once again as the service improves and rates fall. Rail's resurgence could be another headwind to the truckload market. And I think that, again, at the end of the day, like I've talked about on the past, rail is always going to be the most cost-effective option out there if you don't really have any set expectations in the sense of like transit time. Like, if there's no must arrive by date on it and it fits into the rail schedule, it's always going to be the most cost-effective freight out, or ways of transit, out there. And then, again, this obviously shifts capacity or freight volumes away from the truckload when that happens. Let me see. And then it also goes on to say this type of freight is also typically associated with imports, as companies bring goods into the ports and warehouse them until they get moved closer to the end users in the nation's consumption centers that are out there. And the consummate example lane for this activity is from LA to Chicago, with the highest volume rail lane in the US. And the pandemic was considered a missed opportunity for many railroads as trucking capacity tightened and rates soared. Many expected rail to gain new business and have sustainable growth. And that, the exact opposite happened as the railroads were more of a victim of congested infrastructure in and around the ports and rail ramps, and that the railroads are extremely efficient at getting freight between two railheads, but the infrastructure at the beginning and end of the journey limits how quickly that freight can transition out there. That was one of the biggest things at the end of the day was service plummeted from an intermodal perspective. And truckload rates increased in 20 and 21, while intermodal rates were much slower. In late 21, intermodal shipping on the rail offered a 18% discount versus truckload, but domestic containers were down versus peak demand out there. And then overall freight demand plummeted, closing the window for the rail to take advantage of that. And then while truckload rates fell drastically, the discount offered to ship via rail hit multi-year lows in June and July and bottoming out there in around 7.8%. And then during JB Hunt's recent call, let me see here. September had the best volume week ever as volumes improved through the quarter. Revenue were down 15%, but volume was up 1% year over year. And then even with demand improving throughout the year, domestic transportation markets remain burdened with abundant capacity. I think that, again, like this just shows, right? Like service is everything. And you almost go back and wonder, would there been a drastic shift out there if, like again, certain sectors weren't affected as much as others, right? And again, if you look at it, like there was kind of that perfect storm, as we all know, of container or port backups and everything else, which affected rail. It caused congestion and everything. And then the rail's performance was down exponentially. And then that, I think also led in to the massive boom of domestic truckload at that time, right? Like a lot of individuals shifted everything out there. And then, again, they just needed stuff off their docks, right? Like they couldn't wait for it to come in. And then it's like by the time it got to the Inland Empire, from the port in LA Long Beach, for example, and it just needed to move, and it needed to move quick because everything was so delayed. And obviously that caused a lot of stuff, that caused panic and everything out there, and that led to it, right? So it's just like it was definitely I don't want to call it a missed opportunity because there's a lot of stuff out there that went, kind of up in the air during that time. But again, I think at the end of the day, this is why having that service is always going to overcome everything, especially when it comes to pricing and everything that we see out there. Service is literally everything at the end of the day. And, again, like I've mentioned in the past, you guys, price becomes secondary when you execute at a very, very high level, and it's not I'm the service provider, customers need to do what I say in these moments. And, again, I think that sometimes when complacency creeps in, and again, I'm not using any companies as an example here, but, I broke down some articles here recently where some of the larger companies out there are saying, we remember which customers are doing what to us right now. And, essentially proclaiming that there's going to be revenge out there and everything else when the market flips. And I'm just like, man, I don't know. Maybe it's because I'm a small business and I'm a start, and I'm out here making it happen every single day that I don't ever think of that as like from my customer's perspective, right? Like I got to go out there and I got to execute no matter what. I got to make stuff happen no matter what. And, the market's the market. And I also just view it as such a massive opportunity, right? If I'm not getting something from my customer, it probably boils down to my service, right? And what I'm doing. Again, I think it's always about going above and beyond. It's always about getting out there and doing more than what's expected of you. And I think that you have a different conversation at that point. And again, like you can't just do that on one shipment, right? You got to do that repeatedly, time and time again to earn somebody's business, right? Because it's like we're not talking about small sums here. Like this is multi-million dollars of freight that's moving out there and transactions for most of us, right? And to think that like you're almost waiting to get revenge on somebody, it's just Like, that's where I see the biggest opportunity, you guys. I really do. That's why I know for a fact that that is why I think that, from our perspective, there's always going to be an opportunity out there because someone is going to, again, that entitlement factor of it, right? And I'm not going to sit here and say that I'm immune to that mentality, but I know at the end of the day, I got to keep showing up and executing one day at a time, one truckload at a time, and making stuff happen, right? Like again, like I said, we're just making stuff happen, you guys. And I'm going to continue to do that. I'm going to continue to go live. I'm going to continue to talk about all of this stuff every single day that I'm going through to continue to put best practices out there to elevate the industry. Cause that's what we're doing out here, you guys. We're not sitting here saying, oh, we're waiting to get revenge. It's no, we're going to continue to show up, make stuff happen, and grow our business, you guys. That article was from FreightWaves. Intermodal's gain is trucking loss. I thought it was a really good article. And again, it just talks about the different modes that are out there. And again, you guys, that's why we keep prospecting, right? That's why we keep going after it. We keep making our outreaches because it's only a matter of time, right? It's only a matter of time before something might happen. And your opportunity is going to come. That might be because an intermodal provider can't get to it or an LTL company can't get to it in time. And that customer needs that freight off their docks for whatever reason. So again, you guys, you got to keep out there. You got to keep after it. And you got to get, again, just don't lose sight of that. Again, like I said, I was going to keep today's show kind of short because, I've got a lot of freight moving. I got a lot of stuff moving going on today. And, again, little subtle shout out to my friends up at Green Screens, as you guys can all see them up here at the top of the screen. That's how I won all these shipments that are moving right now, you guys, is through the pricing provided on Green Screens. You guys, I literally use them for everything, for my RFPs, for my spot market loads, for my contracted loads, literally everything. So hit them up, you guys, greenscreens.ai/freight coach. Or if you guys want to find out more, just DM me. I'll put you in contact with them. But that is going to be it for today. Like I said, you guys, I got a lot of stuff moving. And, again, I'm in the day-to-day with you guys. I'm in here making stuff happen as well. And I got to get back out there and get to it. So we'll be back tomorrow. As always, if you guys got value in what you heard today, subscribe to the show, you guys. Share it out there to your network. That's how we are number one. That's how we continue to grow and help people, is because if you see value, your network's going to see value as well. I appreciate you guys. I love you guys. And we'll be talking to you soon.